start. He has photographed so many incredible people in the music business for many years and covered artists Stevie Wonder, the Commodores, Earth, Wind and Fire, Diana Ross. I mean, it's incredible. Growing up listening to that kind of music, it's a real honor to have him here tonight. He created a great book that came out in 2018 with Cashin, Soul R&B and Funk. I am the proud owner of a copy, a signed copy. So he's going to talk a little bit about that time in his life and how he photographed these incredible people on and off the stage, gaining total access and having some great memories and stories to tell. So without further ado, Bruce Talamon, we're excited to have you here and welcome.
Well, thank you. I want to definitely let everybody know that I would not be here without Miss Wendy, because she was relentless. This has been an ongoing conversation for a year. I was in the wilds of New Mexico working on a movie when she contacted me, and we were supposed to try and do this last year, and you know, things kind of got in the way, but we're here, and thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your guidance. And more importantly, I appreciate your attention to detail and your friendship, because this has been a nice, you know, a really nice experience. So I'm looking forward to talking about the work, and, you know, let's have a good time. So, and I'd also like to thank, I'd also like to thank Kevin at MOPA. And I'd like to thank Michelle, who is going to direct some questions this way, and who helped edit the presentation. So, you know, we've got some nice, you know, some nice images. We've got some stuff maybe we can have some fun with. So let us move forward.
Let's go. So thank you, Bruce. Now back to me. I just want to quickly, before we start, read what the New York Times, their headline and their subhead said about Bruce Talamon when his book came out. And I think hitting the New York Times for any body of work is just a real marker for anyone's career, but they say, chronicling the virtuosity and struggles of 1970s soul and funk musicians. Bruce W. Talamon photographed some of music's brightest stars for a decade. He considers himself a visual caretaker of Black folks' history. All right, Bruce, so I'm gonna have you, this is his opening photograph. It is also the cover of his book. I know that that Brian, is it Brian who put the, you can buy the book at Amazon, and here's the title. So I'm gonna start off here. Bruce, do you wanna tell us about your editor at Time Magazine?
Well, Arnold Drapkin, I met Arnold Drapkin in 1983. Neil Leifer, the great sports photographer, introduced me. And Arnold Drapkin was the picture editor for Time, and legendary, you know, following, I think it was John Derniak. And he assigned me to the 1984 Democratic presidential campaign. And I covered Jesse Jackson. And but one day we were having a conversation, and you know, we're sitting, you know, 27th floor, you know, in New York in the Time building, and he says, "There's no excuse for not coming back with the shot." Real simple. And I've always used that, and I've always thought about that. You know, with all the work, you know, with all the work that I do, because it's so basic. And I think that you know, or know that when I talk to photographers, one of the things that I say is that if you are going to make this your life's work, if you are going to make this something that you are interested in, know your craft, pay attention, and understand that if you decide to work as a professional, then as a professional, you have to understand that there are no excuses. So,
right, I'm going to lead into the next slide, but can you talk when we start about how nerve-wracking it was, because you were shooting film sending it to the Time Life Building Lab, it wasn't like digital era where you know what you got.
No, exactly. And by the way, this, one of the things I wanted to do to set up was, this is a photograph of one of the drawers in my filing cabinet that holds all of my black and white negs, all of my Tri-X from 1972 right up until probably into the late 80s, and then or actually 90s, 2000s. I started doing digital in I think 2005. So each of those glycine envelopes hold what would be one roll of film, and we did a quick bit of math, and we're talking about, as far as photographs, individual photographs, there's something like over 250,000 just in that. So
I'm gonna move to the next slide, but I did want to ask you quickly, because here you are. How did you get started in photography? Where did your passion start?
My passion started at a Miles Davis concert in Copenhagen. I was doing foreign study, and we had heard that Miles was coming to Copenhagen, and so I wanted to photograph Miles. I had bought an Asahi Pentax camera in Berlin that summer before for the whopping total of $150, and I walked down to the front of the stage and started to photograph. So I mean that was sort of where I, how I started. But I was a political science major and a sociology minor. And one of the things that intrigued me about photography was the storytelling aspect and the whole idea of, you can keep a visual record.
Right.
And that had a direct appeal to me. And I just thought of it as an extension of writing. I was on my way to be a lawyer. I was applying to law school, and then I made this severe U-turn, which did not sit well with James Talamon Jr., my father. But in the end, he knew I'd be okay. Moving on.
Just want to quickly ask you, how many cameras did you typically carry with you in something like a show?
Oh, well, I carried, remember, you were shooting color and black and white. So on your left side, you had at least 2 cameras. And on the right side, you had 2 cameras. And then maybe you might have had 2 cameras hanging off your neck. So with different lenses. If the stuff that you were shooting where you were in close proximity, you probably had a 35 millimeter. This is a Leica M4 that I've got. So you had a 35 millimeter lens on, or you had with this is a Leica M2 with a Leica Vit, given to me, by the way, by Jim Marshall, the famous rock and roll photographer, for my 40th birthday. But you had a 28 on. Right. So you had so you've got these 2 cameras, hanging around your neck, and then you've got the other ones. That I am standing up straight today is a miracle. Moving on. That's a picture, by the way, of me with the book. That's the baby sumo that Taschen puts out. That's the limited edition. So this was at the opening in 2018. So at the Taschen Beverly Hills store.
Great.
And, they're very pleased with the book.
Yes,
Next.
and I was honored to, we did an excerpt in Entertainment Weekly of your book. So it was an honor to make that happen.
Oh, no, thank you.
So
this was a photograph. If you look in the corner there, you'll see the young photographer as the young Bruce Talamon as photographer, or trying to be photographer. I had crawled up on the stage and found myself right at the feet of Isaac Hayes at what became known as, or what was billed as Watt Stacks in 1972. I had no credentials, no press pass, should not have been there, should have been thrown out on my ear. And for some reason, well, it was the end of the night. I had the sense not to do it, early on. But I had my little, that's one of my Pentax cameras. A buddy of mine had another Pentax, so I borrowed his camera so I would look more professional. So I had two cameras. So anyway, moving on.
It's amazing that you were able to crawl on the stage, because you can't even get past a barricade anymore, and it's only first 3 songs.
Oh, well, that's a whole nother
right. I'm just, before we move on, what venue is this?
statement. This was in the Los Angeles Coliseum. The interesting thing about this was that just to show you how the times were, this was 1972. I'm going to show you now. That right there is the photograph that I made from that angle, and it was with a 28 millimeter lens. And I learned something. If you get in tight, the tighter you get, the better the shot is. I was going to say though that there's a certain style to photographing that you have to get into, and we'll talk about that later. But moving on. Mm-hmm. James Brown, the godfather of soul. This was 1973 at American Bandstand.
It looks like you're a foot away from him.
Yeah, well, I was behind some TV cameras, so I wasn't that, close. That's another thing. You have to learn your lenses. So this was a long lens with, like I say, okay, I was using Pentaxes back then. So at that point in my career, so this was because I didn't buy Nikons. I didn't have enough money to buy Nikons until 1976. So this was 1973 also, or either late 73 or early 74. And you had photographers could come in and shoot the performances. And so I was, I had put on a long lens, and you have to be very aware of the cameras because they're moving. And the last thing, the easiest way or the fastest way to get kicked out is to be in the way when that camera hits you. Moving on.
So just a quick question. So you were shooting live. It wasn't like they taped it and did another take. You had to get it. You had to get the shot. Right.
I was working for Soul newspaper at the time, and I'll tell you about that. I was dropped off at the doorstep of Soul newspaper, which was the only black arts and music magazine at the time. It was started in 1966, and it was very successful from 66 until 82. And we covered all of the, black music, soul, rhythm and blues, jazz, funk. It was wonderful. And I became their chief photographer.
And you told me when I met you at a book signing or a book event that white photographers were covering other shows, and that you were one of the few who were going to these early soul and funk concerts.
Well, you have to understand the back then the music was marginalized, and quite frankly, African American artists, everybody loved them and loved to dance with them, or to the music, but the coverage in magazines was slim and none. So you had it was a situation where it wasn't. I don't think it was deliberate, but it was an economic decision. If you're a freelance photographer and you're that there's going to be the Rolling Stones are coming, or James Brown is coming, and that you can get you can get your photographs sold of the Rolling Stones, but that the same magazine Circus Magazine. There were a couple other big ones. Plus, there was Rolling Stone. They didn't do a lot of coverage, and so the artists wouldn't. The photographers wouldn't show up. Of course, they would cover Michael Jackson. They would, or rather, the Jackson Five. They would cover Diana Ross, but they weren't going to cover the Dramatics. They weren't going to cover. They might cover Al Green, excuse me, or Aretha, but they weren't going to cover the Whispers, or they weren't going to cover Blue Magic, or even War, or Curtis Mayfield, So I mean, that was just the way it was. Now
so you were there when that music was at its moment, which is,
this was wonderful.
I'm going to move on. This is Al Green. Yeah, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, this is Al Green. This is Al Green's signature. He would have his roses for the ladies, and this particular shot was on Soul Train, and I love it because, and again, I always tell photographers, pay attention, look all around you, because there's always something interesting there. And in this case, I love the hands of the Soul Train dancers trying to reach for the stems of the roses as he holds it out. And it was just one of those things, where I was able to capture it, and it was gone.
Yeah. So you didn't get a rose yourself?
No, darling.
Oh, well.
No rose for me.
Speaking of roses.
Yes.
Look at Aretha.
Aretha Franklin.
How old was she here?
What's that?
How old do you think she was here?
We would have to do the math on that one. I can tell you we shot it in 1977. This was at her home here in Los Angeles, one of her homes that she had here in Los Angeles. And it was wonderful. I had a private concert. She played her piano. She cooked dinner for us. It was
what was the assignment where she would cook? What was the assignment?
It was a cover for Soul newspaper. She was a really big supporter. A number of these artists were really supported Regina and Ken Jones because they knew how hard it was. And here these folks this was an African American couple here in Los Angeles who started this newspaper. I think at their height they would have 25 pages. So it wasn't a big, you could buy it at the newsstand and the mom and pop liquor stores, and it was wonderful. I mean, we covered everybody, and the importance of that was that the artists in kind were good to Regina and to Ken, because they knew that they were, that they were being covered, that, we were supporting them. Regina and Ken knew that Black teens would buy a magazine or a newspaper in this sense, that wrote stories and had pictures about these African American artists. And I mean, Don Cornelius did it. He's the guy that millions of kids learned how to dance on Saturday afternoon for Soul Train.
Now,
and he couldn't get a deal at NBC, ABC. He had to tape his show. He had to buy space from KTLA, which was the local television station, and then he would tape the shows, and he would invite us to come on. So I had free access to come on, but anyway, so Aretha was just, she was happy. She was excited to be on the cover. Regina asked her to be on the cover. She knew it would sell. She knew it would sell.
What's remarkable to me is the amount of time you got to spend with talent back in the day, and that it made you dinner. I don't think I've ever heard that.
Oh, and then she brought out her furs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
She brought out her
What
furs
did she
and
make you for dinner?
her jewelry.
What did
So
she
we had
make for dinner?
it was just, it
Yeah.
was wonderful. The setup was basic, but here I am setting it up. I mean, I have set my little Norman, they were Norman 800 strobes that we had conned Regina into buying because we couldn't afford them, myself and Bobby Holland. And those, we put a lot of mileage, on those strobes, but we'd have we could only afford 2 lights. So
Wow.
for all my friends who are advertising photographers out there, we had a light in the front, a light in the back, and
Good luck.
maybe a bounce card, and that was it.
Yeah, but you were at the right place at a great time.
It was magic. Moving on. Okay. This is Michael, Marlon, and Jermaine Jackson. They are waiting to go on at the Forum in 1974. This picture is important for a couple of reasons. One, you see, look at Michael's eyes. Look at his eyes. He's watching the Ohio Players, who are the opening band. They are going to come out and they're going to burn the house down. And that's going to be really hard because the Ohio Players were burning it up. And Michael just turned it up a notch. And you can see the set list is in Jermaine's hands, as he's holding his guitar. And also, though, this is important because there's a whole generation of young people who do not know a Michael Jackson as brown with a little round nose. So this all of a sudden takes on another importance. Moving on. I like to say that before he conquered the world, Michael Jackson belonged to little black girls in Gary, Indiana, and up in Harlem, and in North Carolina, and it was amazing to go to these concerts and see the crowds. The crowds were half the show. Sometimes Regina would get mad at me because I'd take all these crowd pictures. But I mean, look at this little girl in the center. She is enthralled. She is excited. Little boy on the left, he's got his little Jackson 5 hat on, and he's right there. And when the Jackson 5 came to town, if you were lucky enough to see him, you had the time of your life. And I'm just happy that I was able to have the foresight to shoot something like this, because now it's part of that visual document.
Right.
Moving on. I call this aftershock. What would happen would be the Jackson 5 would run straight off the stage into the limo. And so, we jumped in the limo, and look at the look on Jermaine Jackson's face, and Michael's, off in another world, and everybody's stuffed into that limo, and I got off a shot, and again, I think it's an important document because you don't see that, There's
you can't jump into a limo with talent.
Well, but not only that, you can't, there's that other thing. Someone now is saying, excuse me, let's wait until they change out of their clothes.
Right.
Get the fuck out. I mean, come on now.
So how much time did you spend with them? So you went to the show, you obviously have after the show. Where did you go in the limo with them?
Well, I mean, you would, it would depend. Sometimes you'd go home with them. Sometimes you'd get dropped off around the corner. It didn't matter. No,
but it was just interesting how the access that you had at a historical point of time doesn't exist anymore. There are contemporary music artists do not have documents of their lives. They have press shots.
No, that's and carefully curated press shots.
Right.
Because that's the other thing. Somebody would say, oh, well, let so and so get out of the wet clothes. Well, that's half the picture. This is a photograph that is important because I love, this is this is the waiting picture. This is 1976. The Jackson Five had now become the Jacksons. They had moved from Motown. And this was up at a record store called Jack's Records in the Haight-Ashbury up in San Francisco. But look at the eyes. Look at these young women. There's a sign, and I don't know if you can read it in backwards, but it basically says, let me see, meet the Jacksons here Saturday, December 18th, 1 p.m. The record company had not anticipated that there would be all these people. They didn't have security. They didn't have what they needed to have. They were sort of new to this game. I mean, these guys were like the Beatles, all right? And you remember the Hard Day's Night and all of that. 20 seconds after I took this picture, these young ladies were pushed through the glass window.
Ooh.
Luckily, no one was hurt. But it sometimes it could get dangerous. Moving on. I also like to tell folks when we're talking about analog photography, save your Polaroids. Okay, this is a Polaroid of Shaka Khan. I was doing a portrait session for a cover for Rufus and the group Rufus. And I also say, again, look around, see what's around. These are the roadie cases. So I turned them sideways and asked her to pose there, and she was fabulous. And we had a good time, but I love her intensity. And again, this was just the test shot. So I had it and I saved it. And actually I have there's a breakfast club that I'm a member of that meets and I may bring that to the meeting. But anyway, it was wonderful. Now here she is younger, and I also wanted to show this is what a proof sheet looks like, or part of a proof sheet, and where you would mark your shot that you liked, and I just liked this. I mean, this was at a rehearsal stage or a rehearsal studio up on Santa Monica Boulevard, and yeah, you get to hang out. Don't get in the way, but you can hang out. And you are there to shoot. You are not there to play and party. Moving on.
But along the way, you got to hear some tremendous music.
Oh, I had the best seat in the house, darling.
Yes, you did. Here it is.
And this is Shaka Khan. I actually she was extremely gracious, first of all, to me, but I told her recently that my cameras had a love affair with Shaka Khan, and I will not deny it. You could not, no matter how you photographed her, it was magical. It was wonderful, and I was, I have some just timeless stuff. Moving on.
Yeah.
Now I dared her to get up on the. I mean, sister was game. I dared her to get up on the cases, and she jumped on that case, and then she threw her head back and laughed at something somebody said, and that was it. That was what I was waiting for. People and excuse me, I'm sorry, Michelle. I was just going to say that you have to be quick. You have to, again, know your equipment. And to any photographer out there just starting out, I would say, Bob Willoughby, the great Hollywood photographer, told me a long time ago, he says, never tell them it'll take a half hour. Tell them it'll take 5 minutes. They'll give you the half hour. Always remember that once you start it, they'll defer to you in those first instances. But you've got to get it and get it and get out if they want to stay. I mean, I've had people stay for 4 hours, and it was just, loading film. I had a great trumpet player named Woody Shaw came in. I shot the Polaroid and he left. Moving on. Again, know your camera. Figure out the technical side. This is one of the first times I started to think about using my camera as a moving camera or a motion camera, like the big cameras. I wanted to get close. I wanted to get inside. This is Earth, Wind, and Fire in performance. The stage was about, I'd say the stage was, let's say, 10 feet high. On a good day, I'm 5'7". This is the edge of the stage. I took a monopod. I put it, to my Nikon F2, and I used a remote control firing device. And remember, this was before autofocus, gang. This was before auto exposure, so you knew what the exposure was. You had been shooting all day, or all night rather, and so I put on a 28 millimeter lens, which is a little bit more forgiving than a long lens. And I guesstimated I think I actually might have focused, but then, I taped it down so it didn't move. And then I went up periscope and shot some images, waiting for the guys to sort of gather in front of my camera. Now, the interesting thing is, I almost threw this photograph away because, you edit, you're doing what you do. And this was, back in the day, God, I sound old. The whole thing with cameras, it wasn't digital, it was analog, it was film. And how is transparency film shown? They're shown in little slide mounts. Well, the slide mount, when I got it back, and they're done generally by machine, it covered his nose. So there was it didn't work. It was, you missed. Something told me when we were doing the Taschen book, take another look. And my wife will tell you, I save everything. Okay, so I had all of my film, and from this was 1979 on their first world tour, and I peeled away the slide mount, and there were his eyes. This is probably and everything was in focus. It was tack sharp. So, what did I learn from that? I learned that I could use the camera I was learning that I could use the camera in ways that I had never done before. So, and the other thing was, don't throw anything away. Moving on. Maurice White watching his brother, Verdine White, levitate during a show in Paris. That's all I'll say about that. But look closely at the mic stand. It's not a real mic stand, but I didn't say anything. Moving on.
Well, I have so many questions, but I'll move on.
Well, I mean, please do. I'm just trying to catch up because I know we're falling behind.
Everyone's enjoying it. I promise you.
Okay. I mean, I don't have an egg timer here, but I think Wendy might. But this was the first studio shot that I ever did of Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'll just say this, you just don't tell them to get in front of your camera. You have to stage them.
Right.
And they came to our little studio. I mean, we had Earth, Wind, and Fire come to this little studio, and it was up on La Cienega Boulevard. La Cienega and Olympic here in Los Angeles, Midtown. And, a lot of this stuff, as you'll see, is in black and white. And the reason is because Soul newspaper couldn't afford color. That was just the fact. But we decided I contend myself and Bobby Holland, who was the other photographer who was there at the same time I was, and who was doing magnificent work. We contended that if you do good black and white, people will gravitate toward it, and people will dig it. And we had a great lab. It was called Pro Lab, started by a fellow named Winston Muldrow, and he was quite a character. But he introduced us to AccuFine developer. He introduced us to which gives a really tight, beautiful grain, and Rodinal developer, and just has a wonderful contrast, and it really pops better than D76. And so, you know, we had this done, and it was gorgeous. But you know, this was a case. They stayed for 4 hours. They did clothes changes. They did all this stuff. We had music. We had food. You know, it's you know, you have to do a production, and we didn't know what the hell to do, but we were doing it. And out of that, about 2 weeks later, I got a call from the manager for the road manager for Earth, Wind and Fire, and he said, "Maurice liked the way you handled yourself. We're getting ready to start our world tour, Europe, Egypt, and Japan. Would you like to come along?"
And Egypt.
There we were. Now, can you back up, toggle back for a hot second? That's on the island of Montserrat in the West Indies, at the Air Studio. Sir George Martin, who famously, you know, recorded the Beatles, had put this wonderful gem of a recording studio up in the mountains of Montserrat, and it was fantastic. And we, you know, you could come there. I mean, let me see. I think I know Earth, Wind and Fire was there. The Police recorded there. I don't know if the Beatles recorded there. They might have been, you know, disbanded by then. But it has a very, I think Fleetwood Mac recorded there. But you know, you were out of the way, so you could concentrate on the music. They brought me in for 10 days, and these are some moments. I mean, you know, Reese is playing air guitar in front of Al McKay, you know, and they're going back and forth about, you know, how it should sound and what they should do. And this is a case where you don't need a flash. I moved around, and so I basically silhouetted Reese, and so it works. You don't need to see the full face. I think sometimes people get worried that you can't see everything. Sometimes less is more. Moving on. Now you tell me if that's not a rock star pose. That's Maurice White. We're in Brazil. That was on the second world tour. We're in Brazil, and it was just fabulous.
How cool that you've got to travel the globe.
Yeah, I had a good time. Now, I like to say sometimes rock stars do live the rock star life, but as you will see in these upcoming photographs, they do go home to mother. This is Marvin Gaye. We're at his ranch in Topanga Canyon. I was on assignment for People magazine. This was back in the day when you could do 7 days with the subject for People.
7 days.
Oh yeah.
Did you say days or seconds?
No, not hours, days. Days.
Wow.
You know, and really you need, I mean, sure, you can cram stuff in to a couple of hours, but it's so willy-nilly and crazy.
Yeah, that's 7 days. I've never heard that before, but that's
we had gone. It was one of those. I started to work for People magazine around 1975, or 76. But I mean, you know, riding in the car, you know, with Marvin, we're going out to the beach. He was going to run on the beach with his brother Frankie. He was going to meet him out there.
What kind of car is this?
That's a Bentley.
Wow.
And 28 millimeter. Okay, figure it out. He's backlit, but you need some light on his face. And you balance it. You figure it out.
Bruce,
You get it done.
you were in a Bentley with Marvin Gaye.
Yes, darling, I was.
That is an incredible story.
Now, like I said, some rock stars go home to mother. This is I think this was like the day after Thanksgiving, and Marvin was running at the beach with Frankie, and I got to tell you, there's nothing better than day after leftover Thanksgiving dinner, home cooked. She was
Marvin Gaye.
With Marvin Gaye on Gramercy Place, where his mom had a wonderful little house, and as you'll see in the next picture, but look at the turkey over there. But this was just like my mother's house. This was the same overcooked string beans and beautiful turkey sliced and the potatoes and the Wonder Bread. Come on now, it doesn't get any better than that. But her boys were home. That's the importance of this picture. Her boys were home. And the sad part about this photograph is that 6 years later, this is where Marvin's father killed him.
Yeah,
where he was
it's a horrible story.
But this was just a wonderful moment. And as you will see in the corner there, I have a plate too. Because
you
Mrs.
seem to have gotten fed on a lot of shoots.
Because Mama,
money.
hey, Mrs. Gaye said, she says, well, darling, yes, you may shoot your pictures, but you have to eat with us. You have to break bread with us. And
so amazing.
Absolutely, ma'am. I knew my manners. Put those cameras down. I got my shot and then put the cameras down. This is LaBelle. This is a rehearsal, sound check. Sometimes some of the most beautiful images come in a sound check.
Where's this venue? What's the venue?
Oakland, and the Paramount Theater, which is still there today. And they did 2 shows, they did 3 shows, and it was wonderful.
Wow.
I had
and so this
traveled up.
This is just their street clothes, and then they would go into wardrobe.
Yeah. They turned into they put on the feathers and the space suits later. But it was just nice. The artist, the African American artist David Hammonds said to me a long time ago. He says, Bruce, the real concert happens before. And he was right. You watch them. I mean, sometimes maybe they'll, add a song or exclude a song, and they're listening to hear what the acoustics are like, and they're going over the notes. Moving on. Sly Stone. This is Bruce Talamon trying to be creative before Photoshop. This is a triple exposure done with a Pentax camera. If you asked me to do that again today, I would not know how to do it. And it had a motor drive. Now, I will say this though. What you basically had to do was paint the image onto the background. So that meant that you had to find black that would work. And then you have to remember, okay, he's here. Actually, I think you shot it this way. I'm trying to remember how you shot it. You went here.
So you moved the camera and
they overlapped.
Okay.
And you're hoping that you'll get 3 different expressions. And in this case, I did.
You don't hear a lot of triple exposure. You hear double exposure all the time. So that's interesting.
Well, the guy who taught me that was a fellow named Jim Britt. He has a marvelous Jim Britt.
Jim did the Jackson.
Who shot? He was the staff photographer for Motown. That's how I met him. And Jim Britt was one of the guys who basically taught me not to fear studio lighting. And he later became the head photographer for ABC television. So he shot, Charlie's Angels, Dynasty, all of that stuff. Roots, The Next Generations.
Oh, wow.
He actually had a cover on, for Time magazine with LeVar Burton and Alex Haley. So I mean, but Jim taught me how to, it was, you just gotta take your time. Don't be afraid of, the lights. And that was real big for my career. Moving on.
This is your Bob Marley book. I'm going to go to the next slide so we can.
This is my Bob Marley book. There is the young photographer backstage with Bob Marley. You ask about how many cameras did you have? Well, okay. At this point, I had more, but I had put them down. But I had one around my neck at all times. You see, I've got one on my shoulder, and you will see that I have a Minolta spot meter that is hanging around my neck. And that's what I had there. So,
and a backstage pass sticker on your leg.
Yes, dear.
All access.
I surely did. Now that was it. The previous shot was in 1979 in San Diego. This was at a news conference where some press came in to talk to Bob, and I love this shot because I was able to just get a nice framing on it, and his face, everything just kind of worked. And the tragic thing was that Bob was gone, when he was 35. This is why I had that camera around my neck at all times. An impromptu soccer match breaks out, and I was able to get the ball. I shot, and I had a wide angle lens. Now this is, and I'll say, don't be afraid to crop. This was a wide shot, like the shot previous, but I wanted to accentuate the ball, and right. I think it works as a vertical much better.
Yeah, and it also looks like the guy in the background looks like he's got a giant skull head Halloween thing happening.
What's that?
Just a sidebar, but like it's I love the guy whose legs are just coming out of the ball in the back.
Oh yeah. But
did you get hit with the ball?
No, I ducked.
Okay.
Or at least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Donna Summer, 1977. Again, this is from a proof sheet.
Who did you shoot this for?
This was for Soul newspaper.
And
most of the stuff
is that like hair and makeup or just wardrobe?
Well, those were her wardrobe ladies, and this was a case. This was a case where Donna Summer was very gracious, very generous, but getting back to marginalized situations, her record company was, shall we say, not as enthusiastic about the shoot. They actually wanted to see, and it was very interesting. There's a lot of politics going on. So the record company, they had, Donna had either an album or a song coming out. So everybody's lining up, they want to interview her, they want to shoot her, they want to, talk to her. And they wanted to send Soul, because we were, in the scheme of things, we were insignificant as far as the record company was concerned. But they wanted to put her on the cover, and they wanted to give us a photograph taken by one of the Hollywood glamour photographers. And Regina Jones, to her credit, said to them, if you want to reach my audience of young African-American teens, because Donna was not doing, I mean, she was not doing that well with Black audiences. And
was this her disco era, like Casablanca
This was the
Records?
disco era, yeah. Okay. And, Love to Love You Baby was out, and, that whole thing. And so Regina said, you have to allow my photographers and my writers to photograph her and to interview her. So they hemmed and hawed, and then finally they said, okay, you've got 20 minutes. So Bobby Holland and I came to this studio where it was an art gallery where we set up, and the shoot was for 2:30. We were set up. We got there at like 11:30, and we set up. We've got everything ready. Who walks in at noon but Donna Summer? And she says, she looks at the lights and she says, "Oh, you brothers are serious." Bobby shot back, "Yes, we are, sister." And she's another one. She stayed for 4 hours and had a ball. But here's the important thing. Months later, Ebony magazine, which was the largest African-American magazine in the United States at the time, called her, and they wanted to put her on the cover. And, sometimes magazines would defer to the artist's wishes, as far as, well, do you have a photographer that you work with? And, generally they'll say, some wonderful studio photographer or some big advertising photographer. And Donna Summers told them, yes, Bruce Talamon. That became my first national cover.
I'm gonna have to look for it. It's not in. Is this it?
No, this is not it. This was from that session. This is from that session, and this is a scan from the Taschen book. I mean, look at the way that bad boy pops. I mean, it was good, but a young man named Chris McElrath did this scan. He owns Contact LA, which is the photo lab out in the brewery. And at the brewery here in Los Angeles. Here we have
the cover.
Now here's the cover.
Beautiful.
Here's the cover. Here's the cover of Soul. And we were doing all kind of wild stuff. Having the sprockets. Shooting at full frame. This is Bootsy Collins, who's getting ready to come up now.
I love this.
And this is the Jackson 5. The Jackson 5, or actually it's the Jacksons, plus Latoya and Janet and Rebe, and we pulled in a fence post, a Christmas tree. Bobby found a Christmas tree, and we had fake snow. And I'm here to tell you, there's nothing harder than picking fake snow out of a natural, out of an afro. It's hard, but
I am pretending you went skiing with them. Is that wrong?
But it worked. It worked.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I've never seen it before. It's pretty amazing.
This was a wonderful cover. We had a great time. Look, come on now. We had adventures.
Yes, you did. And here's an adventure.
This is Parliament Funkadelic. I photographed. This was shot in a broom closet.
Whoa.
A large broom closet, but this was shot in a broom closet backstage at the Los Angeles Sports Arena. The record company wanted a publicity shot, and they got one. You have never lived until you have wrestled 13 people onto a 10-foot backdrop when they are high. And
they were high?
No. Yes.
I have a question. What were you wearing?
What was I wearing? I was wearing my standard issue photographer's jacket and
All those pockets.
with
Amazing.
the big pockets. No photographer's vest, but I had a Bush. It was a Bush jacket, jeans, and my Adidas shoes. But let me back up on if you can back up on that one shot. The other way. One more. Again, you've got to stage him and look at it. The guy with the big glasses, that's Boogie. He's leaning. He's got his arm up. He's leaning. Somebody's, Michael is behind him, the guitarist, and he's, I told him, I said, if you can't see the camera can't see you. You do develop a little photographer's chit-chat.
That's a very good statement. That's a good statement.
But everybody was having a great time, and they stayed for. I got 3 rolls out of them, and the crowd. But see, what was supposed to happen was they were supposed to go from the dressing room to where I was, which was just outside of the not outside of the arena, but next. There was a big door and then the crowd was out there. Well, there was 20,000 fans going, absolutely nuts, and we hadn't factored that in. So the crowd is bouncing off the walls. They're inside and they want to get out and play, but they as you can see, we had we were having a great time. Moving on. George Clinton, the founder of Parliament Funkadelic. This was a session for a cover later.
That's off of Soul magazine.
For Soul newspaper. We had a wonderful time. Nobody looks better than Rick James wearing white 7-league boots strutting across the stage. This was actually shot with a wide lux camera to give a 180-degree view, but I had to crop it to for the format here. This was Rick James and 100,000 of his nearest and dearest
close friends.
This was and again there was all kind of stuff going on. And again, this was 5 years after Wattstax, which was in 1972.
And where's this?
1970. This was the P-Funk Earth Tour, and this was done at the Los Angeles Coliseum.
Wow.
And George Clinton had basically put together a rock opera, a black rock opera, where there were acts and all this stuff. The tickets were $8.50.
Wow.
You had the Brothers Johnson, you had Rufus and Chaka Khan, you had the Brides of Funkenstein, you had Bootsy Collins, you had George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic. Oh yes, and you had Rick James. It was wild.
So what you're saying is that was a terrible show?
Oh, it was so good. But one other thing, just as a political statement here. In 1972, the Los Angeles City Council and the police department would not let anybody on the field where that stage was, where Isaac Hayes was on. Okay, they had that stage in the center, and they had monitors, so you couldn't get out, and you had to stay in your seats because they were scared that the Negroes would riot. And of course, everybody was there to have a good time. But now here we are 5 years later, and they're rocking and rolling. And
yeah, they are.
Right, all on that grass.
So great.
This is an important picture for me because it shows what the artist has to give. It shows what the artist has to sacrifice. This is the thumb of Louis Johnson from the Brothers Johnson. He had just finished his set. He walks back, backstage, and I followed him into the dressing room. And he says, "Man, I shredded my thumb." And I said, "Really?" And he shows me, and I said, "I got to get a picture of that." And
so you weren't like, "Here's a Band-Aid first"?
No, no, I was not. Again,
But
there's,
your point here is a great one, because you do talk about how hard these people worked, how hard these musicians worked, and it
yes.
wasn't like an American Idol win. It was actual hours and hours and hours.
Oh, this is not American Idol. This,
Correct.
and I talk about that later. Now, some people get carried away, and maybe have a little bit too much to smoke or ingest. But again, I had a camera. I happened to turn and see that this guy was being escorted out. I mean, you see, the other fellow has his pants, and the other guy is comparing, and it
There's
was,
some people in the fence area.
and there's people in the fence, but not to make light, of brother's situation, and I truly hope that he did recover. But I gotta say though, this is all part of the story.
Yeah.
This is all part of the narrative of what goes on at rock concerts, and one of the things I wanted to say about the P-Funk Earth tour, you've got to understand, Earth, Wind and Fire, 20,000 people at the Forum. Diana Ross, 20,000, 17,000. OJ's 20,000. This was 100,000 people.
That's crazy.
So this was like Rolling Stones time. This was George Clinton. And what I like to say is that people don't understand and have not acknowledged, after all these years, this was rock and roll dipped in funk, courtesy of George Clinton. This is a time that will never come again.
Somebody write that down. Rock and roll dipped in funk.
Moving on. Aha.
Funk.
The proof sheet. So this is Bootsy Collins. This is, where you get your proof sheet to all you photographers who don't know how that works, look, I'm having a hard time with digital. Okay. I know how to do it. I think I do it well, but there's still, me and Lightroom haven't gotten together yet. Well, but this is what you did. You got your film back. You put that loop. I have a loop. You put that loop. Okay.
Yeah.
And you take that, you put it on the proof sheet, and you look, and you make your selection, and then you move on.
This is amazing.
I love, this was a studio session for that cover with Bootsy. We never used it. Most of the pictures that are in the book have never been seen before because we didn't have any room.
Right.
A typical week for me would be like Nina Simone at the Shrine Auditorium, David Ruffin at the Total Experience. This is all in 1 week. Earth, Wind and Fire and Tower of Power at the Hollywood Palladium. Taj Mahal at the Troubadour. So you were out every night.
And Stevie Wonder.
This is 1974. I was able to photograph Stevie Wonder 1973, 1974, 1975, 1976, 1977. Wait, go back. Please. This is Stevie Wonder with a young Denise Williams, who later became, a solo artist, and she's with Susie Green, that's Susie Green, and she's holding on to Stevie so he doesn't dance off the stage. But they were in Wonderlove, his backup band, and I'm on the stage, I'm behind him. Okay, the access was nuts. Now, full disclosure, Motown was they were my second corporate client. My first corporate client was James Brown on Soul Train. His manager bought 10 8x10 black and white prints of Mr. Brown for a crisp $100 bill. I was rolling in money, baby. It was wonderful. Now, this was Stevie's birthday party at a place called the Speakeasy.
Wow.
And you've got I think Reggie McBride on the bass, and Denise Williams. Minnie Riperton was there, and that is I'll think of it, of course, after this is over. And anyway, but we walked out in the sun and into the sunlight. That's how long he played for his birthday.
Wow.
This is what happens when you get bored after you get the shot. You know, and also you've got to be creative. But so, you know, he's behind all these pianos. There's no room. I'm on the stage. This was 1980 I'm trying to remember the venue. I think it was the Inglewood Forum. And I used a monopod. Now, you've got to get, you know, so I'm working for Motown. You've got to come back with some good, you know, good pictures. You've got to come back with pictures that are sharp and in focus. You can't have this artsy crap. All right. So because the publicist is going to look at this and say, what the hell? Who is this? But this picture, well, it became the cover for my book.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But I had to literally paint the image on the Ektachrome. And what you did was you did a low shutter speed. You did so in other words, what you had to figure out some quick math. 250th of a second at a 2/8 is what is a 15th of a second at and then you had to figure out what it was. So you're okay. All right, got it. And then, because now that means the same amount of light is going to be put in, right? Or is going to be led into the camera. So then I put it on a monopod, and then I moved the camera. And Stevie would have, you know, he would shake his head, you know, he'd shake his head from side to side. And, you know,
it's magnificent.
It was wonderful. This is
Gil Scott Heron.
Gil Scott Heron and the Midnight Band. And I would lug my lights everywhere. I had a little 1970, I want to say a 76 Fiat. And I would stuff everything into that little sports car. And so I, you know, in the trunk put the Norman 800 with the two lights. And this is backstage at the Roxy
Amazing
nightclub.
Show, huh?
And what?
Amazing show then.
Oh, it was fabulous.
Amazing.
And you know, they were wonderful. You cannot talk about R&B, you cannot talk about soul music without talking about, you know, someone who designed a number of the costumes for the Commodores, for the Jackson 5. And that would be a fellow named Bill Witten, who had a studio in Los Angeles, just between Santa Monica Boulevard and San Vicente. And if you look closely, you can see his tape measure going down. But you know, and he had skylight. It was a skylight. And
I'm just going to quickly show what he made.
What's that? Oh, well, there you go. You know, fabulous. But I just love the way that he's posed, and he had a bar. So it was an experience when you went there, and
but
as they say, it's always cocktail time somewhere in the world.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he did all of those like glitter glam costumes or outfits.
He did Michael Jackson's rhinestone the glove. Yeah. Moving on.
I love this photograph.
You cannot talk about soul music unless you talk about the man who brought soul music into the homes of America every Saturday for 30 years. That's Don Cornelius. Again, you know, so it's dark. I'm not going to get a shot of Don Cornelius, you know, of that I can see on this particular thing, but I went abstract. You know, you got to think.
Yeah, no, that was a good decision. And this brings up the silhouette that you talked about earlier. Not afraid of a
Yes.
silhouette.
Yes, it does. This is Soul Train. Moving on.
Billy Preston?
This is Billy Preston. Again, the light was bad, so you know it was funky. So I went behind him and you know, created something crazy and wonderful. Now this is a group called LTD. They're in a house. They rented a house in 1974. They had just come out from Harlem, and one of the cars broke down, and they rented this house. It was $200 a month, and they all lived in that bad boy, and it was like, I think, a 4-bedroom house, but it was special. I mean, here they are rehearsing, and I wanted to show this because this ain't American Idol, folks. Look at that. The ceiling is falling down. And this was I used a Super Takamar. This was 1974, so I was using a Super Takamar fisheye lens. And it was wonderful. But this is the important part. Stuck to the wall. It says, miss one day. They're talking about practice. Miss one day, you'll know it. Miss 2 days, your friends will know it. Miss 3 days, everybody knows it.
So great.
One of Maurice White's favorite photographs. Again, all done in the camera. This is we were in Egypt. I had other plans. I wanted to shoot them at sunrise, and everything was going along swimmingly until I said, so that means we got to get up at 4 o'clock. And he looked at me.
That's not a musician's answer.
And he said,
they're still up.
4. So no, that's not going to work. Can we do it at noon?
This was a set, I'm assuming.
A set what?
The pyramids. You had a set builder?
No, those are the real pyramids. And the importance is, you know, if you go, they're not together like this. Like, imagine one is where you are, then 2,000 feet away, the next pyramid, and then the other one is beyond that. And so what you have to do is you have to go around the pyramids, right? And basically line them up.
Right. So I like that you found your shot. You walk like a lot of people will just stand there with their camera. And it used to be, as an editor, my pet peeve. And I was like, oh, why didn't you move a couple of feet over to the right or to the left or on the other side? So it's an amazing lesson. And
in this, well, one last thing about that, in this particular shot, the end of the shot, you see, that's my strobe umbrella that he's carrying. And we were leaving. It was time to go to the bar. And it was 100 degrees outside, and we were not having a good time. There's sand goes everywhere, let me tell you. And so I did something I had never done to Maurice White. I yelled at him and said, when I saw him walking to the van, I said, Reese, turn around, walk past me. And this became his favorite shot, and it went all over the world after he died.
That's amazing.
And it's been around a while. Diana Ross, reach out and touch. And, you know, she would jump into the crowd. Although it was a carefully curated crowd, you might also notice that there's a gentleman in a black hat to the left who is not looking at Miss Ross. He is there to protect Miss Ross if somebody gets overenthusiastic. Moving on. This was a small party that the Grammy Museum threw for my book. If you look in the back, at the back wall, that is Rick James, 13 feet high and 30 feet across. they gave me the entire second floor of the Grammy Museum.
That's
And
amazing. Beautiful
it was
show.
fabulous. 12 feet by 10 feet, Aretha in Parliament. And then I got into Editorial, and we're moving along. This was my first cover for People magazine, and I
cover
worked for
line?
People magazine,
Yeah.
and I worked for Time magazine. Moving on. This is me in North Carolina with Reverend Jesse Jackson. See, I have my little photo vest on. This is, we were in a jet going somewhere, and I was traveling as the pool photographer.
And that was
Moving
for
on.
Time magazine?
Yeah, that was for Time magazine. And now we come to the last part, which is my work on movie sets. So what basically happened was I made a transition from, I worked from 1972 to 1982 in music. But I started transitioning out of music around 1976, 77, and started working for ABC Television and working for, starting to work in the movies. My first movie was a Richard Pryor movie in 1979. And then from there, my second movie was a little action adventure movie called Blue Thunder. And one of my Nikons is mounted to the tail of this helicopter. And I had a ball. The director, John Badham, allowed me to really do what I wanted to do. One time he gave me a helicopter after everybody had finished. He says, "Bruce, you want to take the helicopter up?" And
what kind of camera is that, Bruce?
What's that? Now that's a 4x5 camera. On this particular day, I was shooting what they called plates, because this was really kind of before green screen. This was like 1981, 82. And so you would shoot a 4x5 and you would get a scenery, you would take a
scenic
thing, and then they would project that
in the back. That's really interesting. There we were. Are you wearing a seatbelt here?
I am strapped. I am strapped in. Although my mother didn't think kindly of me flying past. This was, of course, the day that I invited my mother and my father to lunch, and they got there at the appointed time. But if anybody who's ever worked on a movie set knows that things go over. And sure enough, we were running late, and so the PA, I had told a PA and warned a PA that my parents were coming on the set, and my father says, proudly, "Well, we're here to see Bruce Talamon," and the PA says, "Well, we're running behind." Oh, there he goes. And I'm in this helicopter standing on the skids. And my dad said, my mother kind of turned a few pails lighter and, shades lighter and said, "Oh my." So, it worked out. Moving on. Action with Wesley Snipes in Prague, Wesley Snipes and Guillermo del Toro fighting the zombies. And now I have to say, do not drop that 5-pound camera on the $20 million actor. That's one of the things I like to tell folks. Do not let your stuff slip. You will definitely be banned from the set. This was a movie called, it was a remake of Wild Wild West. I was shooting on second unit on some reshoots after the first unit had shot. I was not the main still photographer, but I bonded with the director of photography, and I asked him, they had a Panavision mounted over Will Smith, and Will Smith is going to slide underneath that Panavision, and it worked. Now you can see I built a little platform and had a pocket wizard, and you'll also notice the purple piece of it's not string, it's actually what do you call that? It's
cord.
Yeah, cord, and that is mounted so just in case everything fails, that Nikon D200 is not going to fall on somebody. But so look, sometimes the still photographer, there's no room for us. But remember what I said earlier, where Arnold Drapkin said, there's no excuse for not coming back with the shot. You can make excuses. This is the Harrison Ford stunt double making the jump. They'll never use this. It's not Harrison Ford. But guess what? It's fun to do, you know? And
That's Harrison Ford.
That's Harrison Ford and Shia LaBeouf. Being
like the
action
series
heroes.
of
And here's some other action heroes. Well, okay, but wait, back up, because on both of these I did the same thing. Long lens, stack the background, stack what's happening, because this in this particular shot, the bad guys are coming for him, but they're not that close. But
are you on a picture car? Are you in a vehicle?
No, I'm standing there.
No?
They're coming straight at me. You know, and that's the other thing too. You got to be far enough away so you can duck.
Yeah.
Two other action heroes, Julia Roberts and Tom Hanks, on a little movie called Larry Crown, and I shot the poster for it. But you know, and here's Eddie Murphy, another action hero. Moving on, I shot the poster for that, for Beverly Hills Cop 2. This is a movie called The Italian Job. Motion. How do you, because there's nothing more horrible than a car that's supposed to be moving fast and it looks like it's still. So I did a zoom shot, okay? Now, this is, you got a couple of Academy Award winners in this particular picture. You got Jack Nicholson, you got Natalie Portman down in the corner there.
Is this Mars Attacks?
This is Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks on it, yeah.
This was Mars Attacks. These are Tim Burton's socks. This is my interpretation of Tim Burton. Okay. 3 o'clock in the morning, back, on the back lot of Warner Brothers. You've got 3 generations of Black comedians. You've got Red Fox. You've got Eddie Murphy. You've got Richard Pryor. That shot will never happen again.
No. Who was the funniest?
And I held them for 3 rolls. And you talk about pressure, because you got guys that can do a comeback quick, but I held them. I didn't let them go, and I had a crowd now. Now we've got a crowd because to get this shot, they're in front of a 1938 Rolls Royce on the Harlem Street, on the New York Street, and it was.
Is this Harlem Nights?
It was Harlem Nights. That was Harlem Nights. So moving on, Kathleen Turner on a show called on a Carl Reiner movie. I worked with Carl Reiner, and that was again a portrait. Now that one was with lights. This one was with available light. Denzel Washington, Devil in a Blue Dress. We had finished the take. And he was standing near the window, and I just, sometimes you gotta ask, and I asked him, I said, Denzel, the light's beautiful, you look good. Can I take a few shots? And he said, yes. And
that's beautiful.
Boom, 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 and got color too. And another action hero. Pee Wee Herman, who was very generous. I ended up doing Big Top Pee Wee with him. Now, you have asked me, okay, well, what are you doing now?
I love this part.
This is a project. This is a project that I'm extremely excited about. I'm working with a guy named Craig Huntley. And we're calling this the Tuskegee Photo Project. That's all I can say right now. This is a 2 1/4, 3 1/4 negative holder. There were photographers who were assigned to some fighter squadrons in World War II. And in this particular shot, I realized that if I was going to talk about these photographers, if I was going to celebrate these photographers, I had to shoot like these photographers. So on eBay, you can buy anything. And I got I found an original anniversary edition 4x5 camera. And we were able to, to get film. You can get film on eBay. And so this is a 4x5,
So you shot this picture?
What's that?
You shot this picture?
I shot this picture.
Okay, so let's go back. So the Tuskegee Airmen, they were the Army Signal Corps, but this was
no. They were Tuskegee Airmen were what was the 332nd Fighter Group, and consisted of 4 fighter squadrons: the 99th Pursuit Squadron, later called the 99th, the 100th Fighter Squadron, the 301st Fighter Squadron, and the 302nd Fighter Squadron. Each of the fighter squadrons had photographers assigned to the squadrons, and these guys, their job was to load the gun cameras, and that are on the wings of the P-40s or the P-51 Mustangs, and like I said, the P-40 Warhawks, and they also, like I say, did the gun cameras. So they would change the film in those cameras, but they also shot daily life. So there is a visual record that up until recently had been lost. And
it's going to be an extraordinary
working
project.
on that. So moving on.
Wait to see it. And this is our last.
This is in September of 2019, actually in August of 2019, I got a call. I have done 3 movies with Tom Hanks, and I've actually gone 3 for 3. I've done 3 of his posters. The first was with Jackie Gleason in Nothing in Common. The second was with Julia Roberts, and now News of the World. Last week I just got the one sheet, and I want to end on this and one other thing. But so I got a call from Universal and from Tom's office, and they asked, "What are you doing in September? And we'd like you to come out and work with us again." And it was, so I found myself in the wilds of Santa Fe and having a ball. I was using, and this isn't a promo, this is just a fact, I was using these new mirrorless cameras, the Z6 Nikons. All of a sudden, I didn't have to use a blimp. So, a sound blimp, which was bulky. So, and it was 10, the camera weighed like 15 pounds. Now I could use, a zoom and this camera, and it didn't make any noise, and I could shoot. Did the whole show with 2 cameras and 2 lenses, 2 zoom lenses, a 70 to a 24 to 70 and a 70 to a 200. And then I pulled out the 300 sometimes just for fun. But, Tom was fabulous, and we got some good images, and it's going to be, it's a fun project. It's going to be released in December. And this is, like I said, I just got the poster yesterday or last week actually, and I'm really excited about it.
Wow, I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of you.
And lastly, I think we've got one more frame. While I was working on the on News of the World in New Mexico, I got a call from the National Portrait Gallery, and they selected one of my portraits of Earth, Wind, and Fire. And this is me back in Washington, D.C. I took 2 days off and went back to the National Portrait Gallery. They selected one of my photographs along with 6 others for the Portrait of a Nation Prize in 2019. So
that's amazing. Congratulations. And you look amazing in a tuxedo. I love this tux. I love your braces.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm a braces kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
What
my
an
story.
honor. I'm gonna just have everyone do a applause, please. If
Yes.
we were in an auditorium, there everyone be standing.
Well, I don't know about
Thank you
that.
so
but-
much, because you did a lot. It's been a thrill to go through your life in photography with you, and I love knowing that you transitioned from being a music photographer to a unit photographer on film sets. It's like we're in a period of time where I think transition in a career is an important topic. So I'm going to move it over to Wendy, and I think that if we have some questions, she's gonna coordinate that with Kevin. But thank you, Bruce. What an honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
And thank you, Michelle, very much too for everything. So one of the questions that came in, I never hear anything when I'm shooting. Is it the same for you? All my energy is in my eyes and everything else shuts down. So do you hear
No.
anything when you're shooting, or are you completely like
Yes.
focused? And
Yes, and if I can hear it, somebody else can hear it. And sometimes in certain situations, that is not good. To the questioner, I love your enthusiasm. However, pay attention. It might save you so you don't get kicked out the room.
well, and one of the things I want to know too,
because you have to be, you have to be aware of everything when you're shooting. And I remember one of my first client with Motown, a fellow named Bob Jones. He was a publicist there, and he says, just remember, you're not the fifth Beatle. What he meant by that was that I'm hiring you as a professional. You need to know what's going on, what's happening. And so you better hear if you're making noise. And again, maybe the listener was asking about, do you get immersed? I get immersed, I get lost in my photography, but I don't get that lost.
well, and one of the things I want to ask you is, at the beginning, we started out with the one piece of advice that you showed that you've carried throughout your career. What would you write down on a piece of paper to pass on to the next generation of photographers?
Great question.
I think I would say pay attention. It's all around you. I think basically what I'm saying is that I would say that you might come to the party for one thing, but you leave with something else. You have an opportunity, you're shooting, and then everything goes sideways. Now what do you do? All right? And so I would say to any photographer, beginning, mid-career, you've got to understand that you're just a part. Oh, and that's the other thing. Okay, when you're shooting, you're not the star. You're part of the. You're part of the package that is putting this together. It's a collaboration, and I think a lot of times people need to understand what that means. And so, you got to defer to, in this case, the talent on the screen, or the musician, or whoever it is. You want to get close, but you don't want to violate their space. It's the best thing. Jim Marshall, the great rock and roll photographer, he and I talked a lot. I mean, you asked me earlier about, was I going to be drinking some scotch in Jim's memory, and after this, and I said, oh yeah, I will. But so we had a number of times, a number of tutorials show that had McAllen's involved, and he was basically telling me that you were there as an observer, you were there, you're not, you have to look. I think that's what he was saying to me, look. And so I would say to someone in mid-career, the same thing, and we can all learn from that. And I'm sure that some of the other photographers who are my friends who are on this Zoom, Zoom call virtual show here, they would also agree that you've got, there's so much going on that you have to, that you really have to be cognizant of it if you want to be a good photographer. And I think that is, whether you're a professional or an amateur, or someone who is, just starting out. So that's sort of what that's what I would say if I only had a couple, they said, okay, you can only say this much.
Well, that's incredible wisdom. And then tonight I'm already getting requests and people are asking about getting your book. For everyone that came, we're going to follow up with links to purchase the book. And you said you would so generously go down and personalize or sign any of the books that people buy.
I'll sign. Yeah, I have suggested there's a store. I think we have a link on the site. Yes,
we're shooting that around.
There's a store that's a quarter of a mile from where I live, and it's Esowon Books and ESOWON. We have a link. I will sign the book, and we'll send it out to you. So
well, thank you so much for everything. You've been so incredibly generous with your time, and we've all learned so much and enjoyed your stories and listening to your journey, and we just really appreciate it. So what are your final words for us for the night?
Well, I'd say mainly, whatever you're shooting, look at it as an adventure. I mean, I've had more adventures than most. I've had an incredible life as and filled with adventures all the time, and I appreciate that. It's like like a guy said, ask me, I'll tell you I'm great on some days, but you gotta do the work. And now I'm trying to do more book projects now, but I mean, if an interesting, I mean, I could be seduced to go out, on the road, once again. I just did a thing. I will say that I did a project, to go out and photograph diggable planets. And it was up in Seattle at the Neptune Theater. And there's like 2,500 people bouncing off the walls. And I've got the earplugs in, and I'm shooting. And I turned to my assistant and I said, I'm 70 years old. What the fuck am I doing out here, in the middle of all this? But I was having a great time. So, if you enjoy it, keep doing it. But again, and it doesn't matter what kind of equipment you have. That's the other thing. I've got all the bells and whistles and toys, but a good iPhone, works just as well, but yes, that is a Leica M3 case cover, but so that's what I'd say, just go out, do the work, have a good time, and shoot. Shoot. It's okay to shoot more. One thing I will say, my last words would be though, because we didn't talk about this because there was, so much that we wanted to go through. I would say to photographers, protect your copyright, think about your work and understand the value of it, because who knew that Bob Marley would only be there for a short period of time. And there's only a few photographers who really got a chance to shoot him well. And I was fortunate enough to be one of those guys. But I'm able to license. I talked to Jim Marshall about this, where we licensed, our photographs documentaries and museums and stuff like that. And this becomes the visual record. So, you know, you need to control that. You need to have a handle on it. And I think too often now, as Michelle mentioned, you know, people are talking about, you know, when you go in to shoot some of these acts now, they say you can shoot the first, you know, 30 seconds or the first act or not act, the first song. And really that's short-sighted, but that's the way it is. But also they're asking photographers to sign away their rights. So this is not a good time. This is a dark time for photographers and visual artists in particular. And so, you know, groups like the APA and you know, MOPA and places like that, you know, hopefully, you know, there can be more discussion about that. There are intellectual property attorneys out there. I will say that if you have an image, you should register it with the Copyright Office. It's not that expensive, you know, and it'll help you later on down the line.
Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the things that APA does a lot for. We advocate a lot for photographers and spend a lot of time in DC fighting for photographers' rights. And just the same as musicians have rights, you know, it's like that thing, but it doesn't occur to a lot of photographers to do that. So that's something that we're really passionate about as well. And I love that you are, and that because you have such amazing work. I mean, your book, everything that you've done, you have accomplished so much, and you're not even done yet. That's what I love.
Well, I hope not.
You're not even
know,
done.
But,
you're still going. You've got all kinds of new projects.
But if I can just say one other thing, thank you so much to everybody who you know, tuned in or signed on or whatever it was you did. I truly appreciate it. It's been nice to sort of reflect on the work. And that's the other thing too, you know, one day you get up, you know, you put your feet on the side of the bed and you realize that maybe your work will stand. That's a nice feeling, you know, that's a nice feeling. And that I was able to actually make a living, you know, at it and you know, put a young kid through college, you know, and the whole works and you know, still alive to tell the tale, you know, that's kind of good. And
it's inspiring. It's amazing. You are incredibly inspiring, and we've all, like, I've learned so much. I mean, everyone, I'm getting like tons of messages in this chat from people saying that this made their week. They've had an incredible time listening to you. And we're also, since we recorded the event, we'll share that around too for anyone else that wants to watch it again, and for you too, Bruce, and your friends and family.
Well, that's great. Well, again, thank you to everybody.
Thank you.
And I had a good time. So there you go.
We did too.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Kevin, Michelle, and everybody, thank you so much.